Hello, my name is Oiza. Welcome to Cable Plus Property, your number one online educative platform on all issues related to land and landed properties. This is where you get easy access to every information related to building construction, documentation, registration, and particularly obtaining planning permits. In this episode, I'll be engaging the immediate past chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, NITP Lagos State Chapter, a professional par excellence, no other than town planner BC Adedire. Like I always say, come with me. Our next question is, what is illegal development according to the law? Is it possible to make an existing illegal building legal? And what should the owner of such building do to make it legal?
Thank you. That is 3 questions in one. Let me start by defining what illegal development is. Illegal development is any development, so to say, that does not have planning permit. Such development is illegal. Let me go further. A building could have planning permit and yet it will be termed illegal development. Why? If one obtains planning permit on a particular project, say residential building, and you don't build according to the approval granted. If you deviate from the approval, 1, in terms of use, 2, in terms of height, 3, in terms of density, 4, in terms of planning regulations, airspace, setbacks, name it, it could be termed illegal development. If you have permit for residential and at the end of the day you go to site and turn it into a commercial building or an institutional use, it turns to be illegal. If you are granted maybe ground and first floor and you now went back to site, you behave as if government doesn't know what they are doing, and you now change it to 3, 4 floors or 5 floors, it turns to be illegal. So, and so on and so forth. So, illegal development is an act of deviation from planning regulation. Thank you.
Is it possible to make an illegal building legal?
Yes, it is possible. In some cases, it is possible. In some other, it might not be possible. Why am I saying this? If you build under high tension cable, nobody will grant that approval because it's even going to be injurious for those that are living in that building. If you build by the road alignment, maybe regional road, coastal road, name it, even access road, to block access, it will be illegal. And you can't, there's no way you can turn that to be illegal. But in some cases, why I say it is possible in some cases is that if you have a building, maybe residential, and is still within the limit of what it obtains within that environment, they now come to site for inspection. They now realize that it can still be condoned based if you pass the test of planning requirement in terms of airspace, setbacks, height, zoning, and all the rest. It can be condoned and made to pay penal fee. So by the time you pay the penal fee and they condone your district and they conduct the integrity test and confirm that the building is structurally fit, it can be condoned and approval will be granted.
So what should
and that makes it to be legal.
So what should an owner who realizes that the building is illegal do to make it legal? What steps?
Honestly, government is trying as much as possible to assist citizens in this Lagos state. I could remember there was a time Lagos State made it publicly. They published it in the national dailies that for those that has or have buildings that does not have planning permit, they should come forth, bring in your application, even without payment or penal fee. So that is why I said government in Lagos State, they are really trying to assist people. So they will now bring in their application. By the time they vet it, evaluate it, go for inspection, and they see that if there is need for you to amend one or two things, you do it, and the approval will be granted. That makes it to be legal.
So, is there any agency in particular that such a person should go to or speak with, or a consultant? Yes,
that is why we have Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority. They are the agency that is saddled with the responsibility of granting planning permit. So, and at any point in time, they do engage people in stakeholders meeting whereby information will be disseminated to people.
So our viewers would like to know if all land can be developed with every intention, and on what grounds can an application for a planning permit be either rejected, disapproved, or withdrawn?
Honestly, to be candid, not all land are developable, because there are some government acquired land, committed government acquisition. There is no way you develop on it because it is for a purpose. And if you develop on it without obtaining planning permit or regularization, your building can be demolished, and that will be amount to a waste of resources. So not all lands are developed. As I said earlier, you know, we have roads on land, you have drainage channels on land, you have high tension cable on land. You can't develop under those conditions. If you develop to block access road, it will be demolished. If you develop under high tension cable, no way, one day they will come and demolish it. If you develop on a canal, so not all land are developable. Again, there are conditions whereby approval can be granted. I've mentioned them. Where planning permit granted by the ministry or its agencies can be withdrawn if you give false information while processing your planning permit, and at the end of the day they now discover that all the information supplied in respect to that application is false. It will be declared null and void, and it can be revoked. They will revoke your approval. So now planning can be withdrawn based on series of parameters. Again, if approval is granted for residential use, as I've mentioned earlier, and you now went ahead and develop a different thing outside the permit granted, it can be withdrawn. So a lot of series of things that can happen where application can be withdrawn and disapproved.
What is village excision and excision, I beg your pardon, and the important things that our viewers need to know about it?
You see, when we say village excision, you know, government owns land now based on land use decree of 1978. And government is trying as much as possible in order not to create problem to the villagers or the settlement, the settlers, so to say. By the time government acquired a parcel of land and they now discover that there are settlements, there are villages, they won't take the villagers along the acquisition. because they have right to live. Government will now do a kind of allow them to expand to an extent by giving them land close to that settlement. And that's what comes about village decision. But for the villager to be able to get grip of that land, there is need for them to prepare a layout or a survey plan. One, to prepare a survey plan. After that, you prepare a layout that will be processed. You might not pay the way people are paying for the layout assessment. They pay maybe 25% of the normal statutory fees just to assist the villagers. So by the time that is done, it will be gazetted and you have right to use that land. And that is what village decision is all about.
Who is a real estate developer in the context of a professional in the built environment and a businessman? Can a businessman be involved in real estate development? If yes, what is expected of him and how can he do that? So is there a difference between a real estate developer and a businessman, or is it two in one thing?
Yes, there are two different things. Real estate developers are those that engage in the act of acquiring land, either subdivision of that land and sell to the public, or acquisition of land, build houses and sell to the public, or acquisition of land, build those houses for letting to the public. Those are the real estate developer. They are trained for that. You could be an engineer, you could be an architect, you could be a town planner, it could be a professional in the built environment. You are trained for that. That is a real estate developer. A businessman who have so much money to invest could be engaged in real estate development. But there is one point to note, is that there is need for you to engage the services of professional built environment professionals, architect in the area of design, a surveyor in the area of having survey plan, demarcation of land, topographical plan and all the rest, engineers in the area of preparation of structural details, mechanical, electrical, builders in the area of construction, and so on and so forth. Town planners in the area of preparation of various reports, LUPA, physical planning technical report, subdivision of land into plots, layout, and so on and so forth. So you could be a business. That's why I said it does not necessarily mean that you need to be an engineer before you own your property. The only thing is for you to engage the services of qualified built environment professionals. So in a way, it is possible for anybody who have money to invest in real estate to come and do business.
So the only expectation from him is that he involves
professionals.
So the problem now is we have many private residential estates being advertised now, quite a number of them. I don't want to mention their names because they haven't paid for advertisement.
That's good.
So the thing is, how can members of the public be protected from falling victims to scammers among them? I remember having a conversation with one of the professionals, and he said some of these estate developers do not even have approvals for majority of their buildings, and unfortunately the public are not aware. So how can our viewers, our audience, and the general public be protected from falling victims to scammers amongst them?
Well, I think there are association of estate developers now. You need to Google the something and get the list of registered estate developers that are readily available within the state or within the country. Then aside from that, it will be very unwise for anybody to have patronized somebody. Landed property is not a thing you can buy in abstract, even though there is no place for housing market or land market. By the time you are dealing with somebody that you have a parcel of land for sale at so place, and that is why we said site inspection is very necessary. They will take you to the site, have the document, confirm the document from relevant agencies to know the authenticity of the land. By the time you go to Surveyor General's office, they will tell you whether the survey plan is having red copy or not. Go to Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development, request for planning information. They will furnish you with all the necessary requirements and details that you needed to know whether it is good for you to go or not. But if you keep it to yourself and you fall victim, you won't blame anybody for that. But that is why I said land, housing, development or acquisition is not a thing one can do in abstract.
So it's a face-to-face communication.
Yes.
What do you think are the reasons why developers fail to obtain their planning permits and also comply with it?
Honestly speaking, if developer doesn't follow the rule, government will make them to face the wrath of law. And that is why it is always advisable for any proponent that want to embark on any development to seek for planning permit. Because at the end of the day, if you build without having the planning permit, it will amount to illegal development. And by the time they came for anything, maybe they want to construct road or they want to use the land for any public uses, you won't be compensated for anything. And your house will be demolished. And by the time you demolish it, it amounts to waste of resources. Then, why must somebody embark on that type of development when you know that you can lose everything? Again, we don't always be patient. Time, though, we believe that there is time value for money. For somebody to have gone ahead to borrow money, and you want the approval done at a reasonable time. But thank God today, we have people that are ready to even assist within the government agencies. And that is why they bring down the approval level to a stage that, unlike before, that all application, maybe commercial, industrial, all these things, must get to the commissioner or the governor before the approval is granted. But today, the DO can approve, the director can approve, general manager can approve, PS can approve, depending on the hierarchy of the project. So, I think we need to continue to advise and engage the public on enlightenment, the need for planning permit, the need to seek for approval, the need to understand what it takes to obtain planning permit and the benefit. I think it will go a long way at curbing a lot of people from embarking on development without planning permit.
Or illegal development.
Illegal development.
Okay, so back to the question. What are the tools, according to the planning law, that the government can use to carry out enforcement activities in the state?
There are a lot of tools that government can use in terms of enforcing planning regulations. Let us start with the issuance of enforcement notices. If anybody commences any development without planning permit, one, they will issue him with contravention notice. The contravention notice will tell you that what you are doing is illegal and you need to come to their office to make sure that you correct the anomalies. If you fail to do that, a stop work order will be issued. Failure to comply with the stop work order, they will issue you with quit notice if it is occupied. Then later demolition notice, sealing notice, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of series of notices, enforcement notices that they can issue to stop the illegal development. And aside from that, we've been working in relation to the government so as to make things easier. We have professional bodies like Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Association of Town Planning Consultants. We do monitor development around where in our area of jurisdictions. If you see any illegal development, you call the attention of the agency so those are, but we still encourage government to use NGO too to do monitoring, because by the time you look at the numbers of development that is going on within the state, you will realize that it is enormous. Compare with the number of staff.
We'll go on a quick break and we'll be right back on the show.
Cable Plus Property, the hub of professionals in the built environment and the #1 online educative platform on all issues related to land and landed property. At Cable Plus Property, our aim is to ensure that all Nigerians and non-Nigerians have at the tip of your fingers, free of charge, all information on landed matters. We provide you with all information you need to know about land procurement, land documentation and development, planning permit procurement, building construction, and so on. Join us today for free by subscribing to our YouTube channel, like and follow us on our social media platforms, and check us on our website www.cableplusproperty.com. Together, we shall make our environment better. Spend and build right.
Hi, welcome back. It's still the Cable Plus Property Show. My name is Oiza and I'm still speaking with Town Planner BC Adedire. Development control activities are hindered greatly by the affluence in the society, and this directly or indirectly leads to increase in the number of illegal developments. So as a consultant planner, would like you to sort of advise, okay, what do you think the government can do to tackle this problem and to give the monitoring officers free hand to operate?
Honestly speaking, it might not be so easy for me to tell you that people do have influence, but it is left for the government authority to adhere strictly to what is right. You don't use, because they say might is always right, and also that we are in political dispensation, democratic setting. Somebody from somewhere might call whoever that is at the helms of affairs that don't go there again. We have interest in that particular something. And what they are doing may be wrong until we do the right thing. Then, because all these things amount to the problem we are facing in the state, in the country, so to say. Because many of the building collapse incidents we have is due to human error. And the fact that somebody from somewhere will now, the authority will go there, they will issue the enforcement notices. But by the time they issue the enforcement notice, and somebody from somewhere now call the Oga Kpakpata and say, okay, don't go there again. There's nothing you can do. But we as consultant, town planner, professional in the built environment will continue to say this is not right. I can mention, I don't want to, because you said they didn't pay for the advert. We have BCPG. They move around, we inspect buildings and call the attention of the authority that so construction that is ongoing this place in this particular area is not in conformity with what's supposed to be there. Either poor construction or material or poor materials used or non engagement of professionals, qualified professionals. We've seen a series of projects being carried out by a mason officer or carpenter or whatever that they didn't even engage the services of an architect. No engineer on site. Somebody will start from, say, okay, I want to build bungalow here. And by the maybe during the course of implementing that project, he was able to raise money. And then, okay, I will deck it. Whereas the foundation that you used to start the building initially is for the bungalow. And by the time you are adding additional floor, that is overload of the structure. And the whole thing, the end result is collapse. So and that is why I said there is need for ethical reorientation.
That's very, very deep. So what is a layout plan? I'd like you to answer the question on this basis. Who prepares the layout plan among the professionals? What are the components? And the procedure for obtaining the approval, as well as when it is prepared. So we could say everything about a layout plan.
Okay, thank you. A layout plan is a subdivision of a parcel of land into various uses. If you say let me begin by saying that a layout plan is a mandatory requirement, most especially when your land is in excess of 1 hectare, that is 10,000 square meters. If your land is in excess of 1 hectare, you'll be made to prepare a layout plan that will be submitted to the Ministry of Physical Planning Development Matters Department for processing. And you to get the permit. The requirement is that if you want to develop, we have different kind of layout. It could be for residential purpose, it could be for commercial purpose, it could be for institutional, it could be for recreational, it could be for, name it, different land uses. While preparing a layout, there are certain things you need to take into consideration. The road network, the hierarchy of road to be prepared, to be designed for, the type of residential use, whether low income, medium income, or high income. In some climes, the uses as low density, medium density, or high density. And all these things will be determined based on the regulations. And as I've said, if it is residential development layout, there are certain complementary uses that you need to provide while preparing that layout, depending on the size of that land. For example, in a residential estate, there will be need for you to have different hierarchy of road, educational facilities, schools, maybe nursery, primary, secondary, tertiary, and so on and so forth, as I've said, based on the size of the land. Then there is need for you to have commercial activities. All these things will be provided based on the percentage required by planning regulation. Corner shops, shopping mall, market, and so on and so forth. Health facility like clinic, health center, hospital, and so on and so forth. Then, recreational services. You make provision for open spaces, recreational ground, parks and gardens, and so on and so forth. So, all those things that will complement your design to make it functional will be readily provided. And by the time you prepare all these things, you now take your plan to the ministry. They will vet it, evaluate it, calculate the assessment, they call for site inspection to see whether what you are saying in your report and your design is in consonant with what they will be that will be approved. So by the time they come back, they come to the office to prepare their own report and they start processing it to the final stage of getting the approval.
Who prepares the layout?
The layout plan is being prepared by a registered town planner.
Town planner.
Yes.
Okay, sir. As the past state chairman of NITP, that's Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Lagos State Chapter, should the government see planning as a social service or as a revenue generation service?
Well, the question is, I would rather tackle it in two ways.
Okay.
We were made to know that planning is a social service while we were in school. But honestly speaking, what government is doing is more of money-oriented business venture, because government is rendering service. They have civil servants. They need to pay them. And that is why I wouldn't object to a situation whereby government is charging a fee for you to obtain planning permit. But in some cases, planning is seen to be a social service whereby provision is being made by government in terms of water provision, electricity, road, name it, infrastructure, utilities and services that they don't charge you directly. In that regard, it is seen to be a social service. But in some other cases whereby services is being rendered by the government to the proponent, you'll be made to pay statutory fees. And in that wise, you may call it money-making venture, I don't know. But what we are saying, I think what is paramount is this: if you pay for a service and you get that service within a reasonable time frame, I think it is good to go. But in a situation whereby excess charges is being made, I do complain certainly that at times government do charge double taxation. We just mentioned about the issue of layout. Now, by the time you prepare a layout in excess of 10,000 square meters, and you'll be made to pay some statutory fees, and there is a fee we call neighborhood improvement charge. The charge is maybe 500,000 naira per hectares of land. It is good because government is going to render you service by granting you planning permit or development permit. But why I'm a little bit concerned is in the area by the time you now obtain your layout approval and you now take the approval to LASPA, Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority, where planning permit will be used on your building, so to say, you still be made to pay what we call IDC, Infrastructural Development Charge. At the layout level, the same parcel of land that you made to pay neighborhood improvement charge, you are still going to be charged infrastructural development charge. And in most cases, government might not even be the one to provide all this infrastructure we are talking about. You will be the one to provide for road, drainage, electricity, water, even security. Then what is the essence of all the money paid by the proponent of that project? So, but in a way, if government can still further assist by making sure that at least if anybody pays for that, they should enjoy the benefit of paying for infrastructure.
What then do you think, sir, that government can do to make planning more relevant to the needs of the people?
Honestly speaking, government has been trying, as I've said, but when it comes to infrastructural development, we know it usually cost a huge amount of money. But at the same time, people should be encouraged by relaxing some of the charges, fees. Unlike before, when you are talking about making it legal to be legal, and I said that if they can condole it, and you be made to pay final fee. But at times, we've seen a situation whereby they want to condole your this thing, and they are now charging for condonation fee. I've never heard of it before. It's of recent. So which is another burden on the client. And by the time consultant is now encouraging his client to embark on planning permit process, obtain your planning permit, and they say the building has been there for a long time, nobody comes around. But for me, no, I will never allow you to have a legal structure and you are calling me as your consultant. I would rather take you to the government. But by the time you now brought the application and you now made to pay a series of fees, it then come back to you as if you don't know what you are doing again. And that is where we still need to beg government as regards the series of charges that they should relax it.
My last question, sir, as we round up. Let's talk about right of way. What is it? When is it determined? By who? And why is it important?
You see, as I've told you, that government do have plans, and they spend a lot of money on preparation of plans. We have series of plans prepared in Lagos State now. We have series of model city plan, we have regional plan, we have action area plan. Name it, that government has spent so much money to prepare so as to have. And what is the essence of planning? Is for us to have a convenient and safe environment, sustainable environment. But what you consider to be, when government has already planned the whole thing by spending so much to prepare plans, and for us to now follow that plan becomes an issue. The road alignment are supposed to be enough for everybody to move goods and services, and you now decide to be along that road corridor, then it becomes an issue. And that is why government would frown its face on anybody that want to block road alignment. I wouldn't subscribe to that too. But in a situation whereby road has been clearly demarcated, and for you to follow it, that shouldn't be a big deal. And we should encourage the landowners too not to be selling road to the public, because the buyer might be ignorant of what they are buying, but we do encourage them to go to the appropriate agencies to find out information about what they want to invest upon, so that you don't be a victim. Because if you build along the road alignment, definitely it will be demolished and to amount to waste of resources.
So for right of way now, when is it determined? Is it before construction or after? The
right of way is determined right from the preparations of that plan.
Okay. By who?
By the government.
Okay.
And that is why we said we have series of plan, and Lagos State government is trying in their own capacity to make sure that we have adequate plans. But for us to get it implemented and do the necessary things, that is the problem we are facing.
Wow, it's been an interesting session with you, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your time.
Thank you.
But as we round up, I'd like to ask, how often do you watch our program on YouTube?
Honestly, I am a regular customer when it comes to Cable Plus property. So I can tell you the numbers of those of people that have been invited for interviewed in this session, and I've been following it up all along.
Thank you, sir. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes.
So we'd like you to also advise the organization. Where do you think we should do better?
Honestly, you are wonderful. You are a wonderful set of people that you have been doing, because when did you start this business? Honestly, you've surpassed those that have been in business for so long, and you are much more relevant in this system. And I pray that God will continue to be with you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for your time, sir. I enjoyed speaking with you.
You are most welcome.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Wow, that was another educative session with Town Planner BC Adedire, the immediate past chairman of Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, NITP Lagos State Chapter. I trust that you learned from that conversation, because yes, I did. Alright, my name is Oiza, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep watching Cable Plus Property. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below, like and share this video with friends, family and colleagues. Also head on to our Instagram and Facebook pages at Cable Plus Property. Bye.